In this world, God created humans and then he created witches. The witches were given power and created with the express purpose of helping humanity as much as possible, and the witches agreed to do so in the spirit of friendship with humans. But then the 15th century happened, and now in modern day, a boy named Adonis and a witch named Chloe are traveling together. Adonis is exhausted from all the desert heat and asks Chloe why she can't just use some magic to make it cooler. While she could probably do that, that is not what her magic is for, and she is busy right now trying to find where they are on the map. However, Adonis is already one step ahead of her and uses his smartphone to find their location. Chloe yells at him because the government would be able to use that thing to track him, but he says it's fine since he made it himself, and it uses freeform summoning magic to replace radio waves with multi-dimensional photons. If you didn't understand what that meant, you're not alone. With this kind of technology, not even military would be able to track the phone down. He then mocks Chloe for not having a master's degree in anime science voodoo and still using paper maps in this day and age. Chloe doesn't take too kindly to being called stupid by Adonis, so she gives him a good smack on the head. Afterwards, she tells Adonis to get up so that they can continue their journey, but while he isn't upset about the smacking, he questions why they need to keep running constantly. Chloe keeps a cheery smile on her face and says the reason is because she is a witch and the world hasn't changed much on their views since the 15th century, so witches are still hated by most people, and they are forced to blend in among the people while in the cities and go on the run when they are found out. Though some places are at least witch-tolerant, and that is where they are heading to. If they get there, they may be able to reclaim the happy life they once had, and they could find a school for Adonis to attend. However, he says he would rather study under Chloe, leading her to believe that he has a thing for older women. Adonis is amazed that Chloe is still able to smile like that despite everything that the kingdom of Rhedia has put them through. It would make sense for her to hate the kingdom with every fiber of her being and devote all her time to bringing its destruction. Yet she chooses to hide away instead. He doesn't understand why she does this and wishes he could just kill all the humans that made them suffer. Just then, he notices a military squadron coming after them, so he pulls out his pen and plans to handle it himself, but Chloe says he is too inexperienced for this, so she'll do it instead. The king receives word that the squad that was sent out to capture Chloe has failed, and he is taking it all out on the messenger. He calls the man incompetent, and as the man tries to explain that it is a challenge to capture an ice witch with one squad, the king's men begin beating him up. Chloe has managed to escape the king thus far, but he doesn't plan on letting Chloe run anymore. Back to Chloe. After what she did to that squad, it is safe to say they won't be making it home in time for dinner tonight. Chloe puts away her magic staff and tells Adonis to follow her so that they can leave, but Adonis is upset about something. Why won't Chloe let him fight alongside her? She claims it is because he is inexperienced, but then he drops a big-ass sword from the sky as proof that he has every bit of necessary experience, and I will say that that is one hell of a resume. He knows the real reason for it, and it's because Chloe doesn't want him to kill humans since he is also a human, but he is sick and tired of not being able to protect her as the one he loves. Chloe embraces him and tells him that she understands, but their touching moment is interrupted as one of the machines from the dead soldiers has captured their location and the Empire is using that to teleport them from where they are into the capital. Green light surrounds them as they begin to float, and Chloe realizes that this must be large-scale teleportation, but that should be too advanced to pull off. They've been caught, so Chloe and Adonis lock hands in order to not be separated from each other. Back in the capital, the king gives a speech to the people of his kingdom, which was something along the lines of the witches used to protect us with their power, but we got jealous of their power, so we made our own power through the advancement of technology and have come to the age of the gear expansion. They have airships, they have buildings so sturdy that no storm could destroy them, and most important of all, they have smartphones to watch cat videos on. They no longer need the witches or their power for their survival, since they possess enough power on their own. And now that they have this power, they are going for world domination, with the only obstacle to that being the witches that can rival their military might. Therefore, they are going to eradicate all witches, and as he finishes his speech, Chloe and Adonis are teleported onto the stage. Adonis realizes what is going on and charges forward to buy Chloe some time to escape, but he gets tackled to the ground really quickly. Seeing the one person who she cares deeply for laid out on the ground, Chloe has lost all patience she once held for the humans and starts casting her spell. She had restrained herself previously because she knew if she were to destroy the human world, then Adonis would have no home to return to if anything were to happen to her, but now none of that matters as she is about to cast Absolute Zero and freeze the city over. However, as the spell is cast, nothing happens and she is left speechless. The humans develop some kind of machine to negate all magic in the area, and without magic, both Chloe and Adonis are completely powerless and at the mercy of the king. The king mocks Chloe for having helped humanity in the past, yet being hunted down and kneeling before him powerless. He then rips her shirt off in front of the entire crowd, humiliates her and smacks her to the ground. Meanwhile, the crowd is busy taking pictures to upload to Twitter. Adonis can't bear to watch this happen, so he once again charges at the king to save Chloe, but is subdued by the guards. The king has grown annoyed with Adonis yelling so much and orders his guards to kill him. But as the guard points the gun at the head of Adonis, Chloe can't bear to see him meet his end here, so she throws her pride aside and begs the king to spare Adonis. She lies that she kidnapped him and raised him as her slave, so she begs the king to let him go as she doesn't care what happens to her afterwards. The king has no reaction to her plea and reaches into his pocket and pulls out his handgun, pointing it at Chloe's head. Adonis is having a breakdown over his lack of power to protect Chloe and keeps desperately trying to activate a spell, but it keeps failing. While staring down the barrel of the gun, Chloe looks to Adonis one last time, and Adonis has flashbacks to the time when Chloe first found him on the streets and took him in to raise him. However, even the power of flashbacks is unable to save them from this situation, and Chloe is about to say her last, "I love you," but gets shot before she can finish. Truly the saddest moment of the season. After killing her, the king turns away and orders his men to pump her body full of lead, leaving her body as a mass of pulverized flesh. Adonis screams out in pain while the crowd cheers on the execution, and an axe is brought out to cut her head off. The king proudly displays the head of Chloe and proclaims victory over the witches. But you know Adonis is never going to forget what has transpired today and the friend he lost. 10 years later, a large chunk of humanity's situation has gone to shit, and they are suffering at the hands of the people who killed Best Girl, the Kingdom of Rhydia. In a detention cell, two really malnourished women are fighting over a loaf of bread and are about ready to kill one another over it. But then this girl, who somehow manages to keep her makeup game on fleek while in prison, offers her loaf of bread to them to settle the argument. I personally wouldn't do that, but she seems really happy to have them no longer fighting, even if it means no bread for her. One of Daroka's friends, Anna, comes over and asks if she will be okay since she hasn't eaten anything in a while, but she says she is fine and full of energy. Anna tells Daroka that she is really kind-hearted despite the current state of the world. No matter how far advanced the technology of the world became after they no longer had witches to point their guns at, they began pointing their guns at each other, and a never-ending war was waged within the human world. The people were led to believe that the world would get better once all the witches were gone, that this is definitely not better, and here they are in the gulag. Daroka notices that Anna is upset, so she tries to cheer her up with a little puppet show. Even though they were dragged here after they lost to the kingdom, but it will surely work out somehow. The puppet show manages to brighten Anna's mood slightly, but that brightness quickly fades as a guard comes in and starts yelling for number 218 to come out. So far, 4 people have been called out like this, yet no one has ever come back after they were called out. The guard continues to tell for number 218, and as Anna looks down at her hands, she is horrified to discover that she is 218, and the one that they are calling out. Daroka notices this, and at the last second, switches out her number with Anna to spare her friend whatever unknown fate awaits. She is taken to a room where this person is evaluating her and tells her to strip down. She is shocked, but the guy tells her to get used to it since this is all she's good for now. The manager walks up to her and tells her that the Kingdom of Rhydia is the world's superpower, and the only use Rhydia has for her is as a sex slave. So she's going to become a sex slave to some lord of the kingdom, and there is nothing she can do about it. Except there is something she can do about it, and bites the manager's finger to get him to let go of her. She takes off running, but also steals the manager's phone in order to set all the other prisoners free. However, the phone requires voice authentication to be able to perform commands, so Daroka is forced to do an impression of the manager to get it to open all the cells, and then they all run like hell. Daroka comes across a large door while running and uses the phone to unlock it. Inside, she finds a large pod, but she is apprehended by guards shortly after. However, her previous command to unlock all cells also unlocks this one, and Adonis is released with nothing but rage in his eyes. Adonis, after finally being freed from the restraints of his capsule and fueled by his burning rage, casually walks forward and snaps off the chains that bound him. The guards watch this happen and begin freaking out amongst themselves as anyone would. One believes they should report that Adonis escaped and walk away, but the others don't like that idea because it would get them in a lot of trouble, so they decide to go up against the dude whom they literally just witnessed break chains just by walking. But don't worry, they are armed with sticks, so that should definitely give them an edge on him in combat. Okay, I guess the stick isn't going to do much to save him from Adonis. The other guard is a little smarter and reaches for his gun, but Adonis sees it coming and headshots him with a knife before he can do anything. The final guy is frozen stiff by the carnage he just witnessed, But as he regains his senses and tries to fire at Adonis, Adonis quickly closes the distance and disarms him, using his own gun to finish him off. After all the guards have been sent to the afterlife, Daroka tries to speak to Adonis, but he looks back at her and begins walking towards her with the gun in his hand. Daroka fears that Adonis is going to shoot her as well, and to be honest, I did too. But as the shot is fired, Adonis only hits her chains to free her and walks off. Meanwhile, outside, the security has finally realized that the cell blocks have been opened and make an announcement on the intercom to initiate countermeasures. At the Empire's National Security Headquarters, the senior executive director, Yamato, has just learned of the situation at the prison, and I'm inclined to believe that he simply heard all the commotion at the prison from his seat, because this guy is hearing things in 5D with those ears. He sends out this guy, Ikao, to deal with the situation at the prison, and the girl beside him, who somehow didn't have the budget to get a jacket that would fit, Vice Director Yuki, tells him not to make a disgrace of the Empire and do his job properly. So Ikao leaves and prepares to undertake the mission, revealing that he is mostly machine. He initiates his navigation system and heads out to the prison to investigate. Meanwhile, back at the prison, the manager is left in utter disbelief as he sees the door to the confiscated treasure room wide open. The manager asks how this possibly could have happened, and a guard informs him that Daroka must have imitated his voice to gain access to all the rooms with the phone. The manager is frustrated that the authentication system was cracked so easily, but regardless, this is really bad for him. Even if she was able to crack the system, the manager's phone wouldn't have had the level of authority needed to access that chamber, as it contained the SS-level threat, Adonis. Meanwhile, Adonis is sitting atop a tower after finally being released, and he's not messing around with any of this taking time to readjust to the world business. He gets straight down to work and tests his magic to make a bullet giant and shoot it through a building, planning to kill every last human in the city like he had sworn to do back then. Back at the prison, all the prisoners that were left there have been executed by Ikao, and after he receives word of the bullet Adonis shot at a building, he says he will go to check it out, but first he's going to take care of the manager for his incompetence in his duty. Meanwhile, Adonis walks through the city streets and thinks about how Chloe likely wouldn't approve of what he's about to do to these people. She would probably say something along the lines of, "Just live your life normally, killing them isn't going to bring me back to life." But he can't simply forget what they did to her all those years ago, so they must pay for it with their lives. He uses his magic to summon a giant and begins laying waste to the city with it, and on the ground, the people are left bewildered and terrified by the horror before their eyes. The police initially have no clue what is going on out there, but after he sees for himself, the National Security Bureau gets called in. All the while, Adonis makes his way to the palace to take his revenge on Emperor Goth personally. Director Yamato gets a status report on the current situation of things and is informed of a giant robot rampaging through the city. They believe it is an attack from a neighboring country, and he asks if the Emperor has been informed of any of this yet, but the Queen stopped any reports from being delivered to the Emperor, saying the Emperor is not feeling well at the moment. As Gothi is not reachable right now, Yamato assumes command and decides to declare a state of emergency to defend the city against the giant. The military forms a defensive line, and Yuki realizes that the one controlling the giant must be Adonis, so she informs Yamato, who then orders the anti-magic machine be brought out of storage and used in order to counter him. But the soldier is not sure the machine will still function properly after 10 years of sitting idle. The military tanks line up and begin to fire at Adonis, but they have aim that is just as bad as my squad mates and collectively miss every single shot. However, this is not due to their lack of skill, but rather because of Adonis's magic deflecting the shells. He then smashes a building and uses the pieces as cannonballs to decimate the tanks. The past 10 years during which Adonis was trapped were not meaningless, but rather he was able to use that time to practice magic within his mind and plan out exactly how he would destroy the kingdom once he gained his freedom. The only way a non-witch can use magic is by using written style summoning magic and a special quill. It is the practice of understanding the rules of the world and magic and converting them into mathematical equations, so mastering such an art wouldn't be easy, but he had an excellent teacher. If the kingdom's great purpose was to kill all witches, and everyone who lives within it and enjoys its benefits are equally as guilty, so he's going to make sure to return the favor and destroy everything that they have built up. He uses magic to summon 2 Gatling guns and begins to rain bullets upon the crowd of panicking civilians, but as he finishes the first round, tears well up in his eyes because he doesn't feel good about doing this. Meanwhile, Ikao has finally spotted Adonis in the giant's hand and relays the information to the army, prompting them to bombard the giant to knock Adonis off balance. While all the bombings are going on, the citizens are still trying to evacuate, and this kid is crying over his mother's death while a building falls over him. Luckily, before he is squished, Daroka runs in and saves him from being killed. She leaves the boy with the Raymond lady and says she's going to go stop Adonis, but Adonis is already laid out on the ground with the military fast approaching him. Meanwhile, in the castle, the emperor has just woken up from a brief nap and asks his wife what all the noise outside is about. The queen tells him not to worry about it since the kingdom he has built is strong enough to outlast any threat that comes his way, and Goth thanks her for the kind words. But his life will soon be coming to an end because of an incurable disease that has him coughing up a lot of blood. His wife calls for a doctor to come in and help Goth, but he says it's fine and thinks this is a curse from God for killing the witches. However, he doesn't regret what he did, as he thought humans could not progress while witches and magic were still used in the world, so in order to create a path for humans, he did what he had to do and still believes what he did was right. However, no amount of monologuing is going to make me feel any sympathy towards this guy. Back on the ground, all the soldiers that attacked Adonis have been wiped out and he is about to kill the last one. But before he can do so, Daroca yells out for him to stop. Adonis stops for a second because he recognizes Daroca from the prison, but as she asks him to stop all his killing because the citizens are innocent, Adonis becomes enraged at the notion that any of these people deserve to be described as innocent. They are every bit as guilty as Goth in terms of Chloe's death, so why would he let them live? In fact, why would he limit the killing to the citizens of Rhedia alone when the whole world turned their backs on witches? As Adonis walks towards Daroca with intentions of killing her, she brings up how Chloe would not have wanted him to do any of this. However, the mention of Chloe's name sends Adonis into a rage and he grabs Daroca by the shirt, accusing her of only being here to distract him, so he is not going to waste any more of his time talking to a human. But Daroca reveals that she isn't human but rather a witch, and the power she's able to conjure in her hand is proof of that. Adonis releases her in disbelief, but just as she thought she was finally getting through to him, she's picked up again and threatened once more because Adonis does not believe that she is telling the truth, since all the witches are meant to be dead. She swears that she isn't lying and a few of the witches managed to escape the witch hunts. Then he asks why they did nothing and just let Chloe die like that if they were still alive. She apologizes for not helping back then, but everyone was desperate to keep themselves hidden and survive the Empire's purge. But no amount of apologizing is going to bring Chloe back to Adonis. However, Daroca tells him that there is a way to bring Chloe back to life, which gets Adonis to drop her. At this point, he doesn't know what to believe and goes back to thinking she is mocking him and Chloe, but she tells him that she was tasked with infiltrating this kingdom in order to save him, because they need his memories of Chloe to be able to resurrect her. But if he doesn't believe her, then she is fine with being killed by him and says she was glad to have met him. Looking at her smile in the face of death, he remembers Chloe's face and drops his sword, finally being willing to believe her and take her hand. But life is not going to let this man go an episode without witnessing someone important to him die as Eekhout smikes Daroca. We see a little bit of Daroca's past where the humans had begun to kill all the witches and burn their houses down, but she can't understand why any of this is happening. Another witch named Mia comes up behind her and Daroca asks her why all of this is happening. So far they had gotten along well with the humans. They even recently went to the city to cure a man's illness, and this is how the humans decide to repay them. Daroca suggests they use magic to stop the violence for now, but Mia tells her that they already tried, but that machine that the humans created is suppressing their magic. They don't know exactly what that thing is or how it is suppressing their magic, but Mia believes that Madame Ophelia might know something about it, so she wants Daroca to go and deliver the message. Daroca understands but asks why Mia can't come with her, but with a sword in her back, it is already too late for her. She instructs her to follow the Star of Revelation, which will take her to Ophelia's mansion and gives her some motivation that she can do it with a puppet. With tears in her eyes, Daroca turns around and starts running away while behind her, the humans have found Mia and surround her before killing her. And now, Daroca also lies on the floor and dies. Adonis holds her in his arms and begs her not to die on him before she has told him how to bring Chloe back to life. But before he can get the information that he needs, several more shots are fired into Daroca, and she is now definitely dead. The shots were fired by the soldiers that just arrived, and Adonis is left agonizing over the fact that even if he knows that it is possible to bring Chloe back from the dead, he doesn't know how he is supposed to do that. The soldiers surround Adonis, intending to kill him right here and now, but Adonis warns them not to get cocky as he surrounds himself with magic. The soldiers see him using his magic, so they all open fire on him. However, none of the shots even come close to hitting him as his magic stops and redirects the bullets, hitting the soldiers instead until there is one guy with the look of, "Shit, I should have called in sick today." Adonis is slowly walking towards the last guy while Eekhout takes aim with his sniper from a rooftop, and once the shot is lined up, he fires his anti-bunker sniper straight at Adonis, causing a huge dust cloud to form. However, Adonis is still perfectly unharmed and has stopped the ridiculously large bullet, using his magic to turn it into a 9-meter round and firing it back at Ekaut. Meanwhile, Ekaut is too stunned by the missile approaching him to react, so he just sits there as his upper body is blown away. Now that Ekaut is taken care of, Adonis focuses his attention back on the last soldier and declares that he will wipe out all humans and make them feel Chloe's despair. Yamada knows there is no way that they will be able to beat someone who knows how to use magic, so he rests their fate on Yuki being able to get the magic-suppressing machine going again. Yuki is down in the basement with the machine and is so excited that she finally gets a chance to be useful to her brother that she forgets she is meant to be a commander here for a few moments. Before she can try to turn the machine on, however, the Science Bureau arrive and their leader, Theta, tells Yuki that they can't allow her to turn the machine on. Yuki finds the phrasing of that statement to be a little off-putting, so she reaches for her gun and asks for an explanation from her. Yamato gets a call from Yuki's phone and hears Theta talking to him. He asks her why they haven't turned on the magic photon suppression device yet, but Theta explains to him that they can't do that for a very good reason. Human dysfunction disease, a disease that all the soldiers who took part in the witch hunt 10 years ago contracted. So basically, the machine gives people cancer. It literally kills the cells of all the humans around it, and since all the witches that maintain an environment where the harmful rays could be cleansed are gone, with how things currently are, if they turn that machine on, it could lead to the end of the humanity as they know it. And to this point, no one knew of this because the Science Bureau were ordered to hide their findings. All the people who stood before this device and fought the witches are either dead or are now dying of the disease, including the Emperor. Deserved. So knowing that turning the machine on will mean certain death for all the humans here, what are they going to do against Adonis, who possesses magic? Their weapons have proved to be ineffective, and nothing they have aside from this machine can help them fight the witches. So even with the cancer warning, Yuki still chooses to run forward to turn the machine on because she sees no other way to stop Adonis. The director yells for her to stop, but since she doesn't stop, she orders all of her crew to fall back to avoid any radiation and then chases after Yuki to stop her from doing anything stupid. Yuki gets to the front of the machine terminal and begins the activation sequence while Theta still warns her against it. As she presses the button to turn the suppression device on, Adonis outside suddenly feels his magic fading and his quill gets knocked out of his hand. He is in a state of shock because, without the quill, he is just a regular tank of a human being. Yamato sees this happen and questions what happened and if Yuki happened to turn on the machine and what that would mean for her health. However, Theta, on the other end of the line, while holding an unconscious and bloody Yuki, managed to turn off the machine immediately after Yuki turned it on, so the radiation exposure is minimal. But due to their proximity, they were both heavily affected, and it means that at least both her and Yuki now have cancer. She tells Yamada that since the machine was already turned on, there is no going back now and he needs to take advantage of the opportunity that this provided and finish Adonis off here and now. His job is to eliminate the threat to the kingdom before him, so he orders all the soldiers on ground to charge at Adonis while he runs backwards to retrieve his quill. And they must have run out of bullets or something because they could definitely just shoot him right now. Before he can grab the quill, a soldier runs up to him, and at the same time a building crumbles to the ground before them, kicking up a huge dust cloud and forcing the other soldiers to retreat for now. The soldier in front of Adonis unsheathes her gun's thermoblade, raising up to strike. And Adonis, who still doesn't have his quill in hand, realizes, damn, I might actually go out like this, but at least I get to see Chloe again in the afterlife. The soldier then brings the sword down and beheads Adonis on the street. Roll credits. Then, with the other soldiers still wondering what is going on in there, the soldier that beheaded Adonis walks out with Adonis's head in tow, proudly exclaiming that she did it, leading all the other soldiers to celebrate at their victory. The people in the control room also begin to celebrate, but jokes on them in 2 to 3 years, they'll all have cancer. Yamada breathes a sigh of relief as he believes the trouble is finally behind them and congratulates the soldiers for defeating Adonis, but also tells them that there is no time to relax. They must retrieve the body of Adonis to avoid any reanimation shenanigans and to evaluate the damage that the city has sustained through this whole attack. He also instructs the soldiers to join the rescue teams to help save all the civilians that were caught in the crossfire of the battle. He gets a look at the woman who managed to behead Adonis on the monitor and says she looks really young for someone in the army. His assistant informs him that it looks like she is one of the new recruits to the Armored Foot Soldiers and he can look up her information if he wants to know more about her. But Yamato says there is no need as they have more important matters to attend to. He orders his assistant to go down to the basement and check on the physical condition of both Yuki and Theta, who are both unconscious and bleeding badly from all the radiation exposure. After the victory over Adonis has been confirmed, the Emperor gives another one of his speeches to the people, telling them that magic still remained in the world and the boy whom they took from the witch's hands 10 years ago had been unleashed upon them once more. He decided to attack them after they had killed his only friend and imprisoned him for 10 years after, despite being human himself. He held no sense of mercy towards his own kind, the humans, and I wonder why. Even after 10 years, they uncover the mystery behind how Adonis was able to use magic as a human, and since they kept him alive that long trying to figure that out, all of this happened as a result. However, the people do not need to fear, for Rydia has achieved the pinnacle of technological advancement and has finally eradicated magic from the world entirely. This he says while hooked up to his cancer life support, which is a direct result of said technology that eradicated the witches. A student in his school are watching his speech on YouTube, and the teacher points out to the class that they lost a few of their classmates to the previous incident, but national mock exams are coming up, so they need to move past it and continue studying for it. After class, one girl is approached by another who claims to have seen her do something terrible during the incident. The first girl, Eri, claims that it was a perfectly natural reaction to the situation and she did nothing wrong there, so the other girl leaves her alone for now. Later that day, Eri goes to visit the memorial for all the people who died in the incident and apologizes to her boyfriend Takumi. He was pinned under a rock and asked her for help, but just as she was about to try to save him, she noticed a rock falling towards them and left him there to die. She is sure that he must hate her now and that she is a terrible person. She left her boyfriend to die, and even worse, she started simping for Adonis, who is the same guy that caused her boyfriend's death. However, a guy pops up behind her and sees her staring at Adonis' pictures, startling her. She realizes that the guy is part of the government and this could be pretty bad for her, so she leaves immediately, but Oz is not going to let high school girls get away with simping for serial killers, so he reports her for treason, for which she will later likely be executed or imprisoned. He also gets some news from his analysis girl back at headquarters who really hates working for this dude. She informs him that the body of Adonis that they have is a fake, and we see the real Adonis wake up elsewhere. Adonis is surrounded by witches and being held down to a table because his body is reacting violently to the transportation they used to bring him here. They were worried something like this might happen, but they have no idea what to do about it now. This is where Madame Ophelia steps in and says she will return him to his senses by stimulating his brain, causing him to see memories of Chloe. He continues to struggle until he finally remembers what happened back in the kingdom. The body that was killed by the soldier was a fake, and that soldier turned out to be a witch who was named Anna. She was sent to infiltrate the kingdom alongside Doroka and just used duplication magic to fake Adonis' death so Ophelia could transport him up to the witch's base. She gives the signal and Adonis is wrapped in a ball floating into the sky, bringing us to this moment where Adonis is confused about the situation and Ophelia thanks him for all the fighting he has done for them. He finally has a moment of clarity and realizes that this must be the nation of witches. He is wheeled around in a wheelchair because he is still unable to walk, and he looks around the nation of witches, which is basically a utopia for them, and talks to a few people who had met Chloe in the past and had a lot of good things to say about her. He is later brought to Ophelia, where he attempts to get out of the wheelchair, saying he can walk by himself now, but Ophelia tells him to stay in his chair since this place should not feel the influence of a human. Adonis asks her if she knew Chloe, but Ophelia says there isn't a single person in the nation of witches that didn't know Chloe. Despite her use of ice magic, she always radiated warmth and was beloved by all the witches, but then she was eventually cast out of the nation. Adonis corrects her and points out that she was the one who kicked Chloe out of the nation of witches because she taught magic to a human, him. Ophelia doesn't deny it, but says magic is like the soul of the witches, a power given to them by God to guide the humans, and thus they believe that something like that should never be taught to a human. They all begged Chloe to abandon her human student and return to the nation, but she would only smile and apologize for not listening to them. Ophelia smiles a little, remembering the past, and tells Adonis he can have his quill back. After seeing it, his eyes widen and he leaps out of his wheelchair, pushing another witch out of the way to get to it. But to be honest, she wasn't blocking his path, so that was pretty unnecessary. It's a magic-imbued phoenix feather with a red dragon eye ornament which allows a human to use magic. But the reason he is so obsessed with the quill is not because of the power he has with it, but rather because it was a gift from Chloe. He asks Ophelia if she is really serious about being able to bring Chloe back to life, and she says witches do not lie. This brings relief to Adonis, knowing that he will be able to see his beloved Chloe once more, but as he looks upwards, he doesn't see the moon, he sees the earth and asks where they are right now. After the witch hunt 10 years ago, all the remaining witches collectively went to the moon where the humans cannot reach them, at least until they invent rockets. The advent of science brought out the true nature of humans. They seek to control everything around them, and that which they cannot control, they aim to get rid of altogether. As Adonis sits on the surface of the moon with a space suit and Ophelia stands there just raw-dogging the cosmos, she shows him the gravestones of all the witches that were killed in the kingdom's conquest for power. The king of the humans believed that humans would only be corrupted by the power of witches and would oppress them forever. But then after he finally got rid of the witches, he oppressed the rest of the humans in the world. Ophelia then takes Adonis to see Meadow, the tree that gives birth to the witches. Ophelia asks Adonis if he has ever seen one, but this is his first time seeing it in person since Chloe did like to talk about her origins. Witches are unisex beings and do not have mating pairs. Rather, they receive life from these trees. However, this is the last surviving Meadow tree that can give birth to the witches since the humans burnt down all the other ones, and this was the only one they were able to transport to the surface of the moon. Adonis notices a pod which contains a witch which looks an awful lot like Chloe, but Ophelia tells him that it isn't Chloe, just a witch waiting to be born. But in order to turn her into Chloe, his strength and magic is needed. Magic is the act of giving an individual's thoughts a physical form in the real world, and the written style summoning magic that Adonis uses can be used to give form to any and all thoughts. And memories are the very essence of life itself, so if he were able to use his magic to seal his memories of Chloe and the unborn witch, then she can be resurrected. So as it stands, he and his connection to Chloe are the key to bringing her back to life, and as such, he should let them know when he is ready to begin the ceremony. Adonis looks up the tree and still can't believe he will actually be able to revive Chloe, but then the witch that had pretended to be a soldier back on Earth, Anna, approaches him angry that Daroka died for him. But that's not his fault. This whole operation was your idea, and he takes no responsibility for the casualties. She calls him selfish and acts all innocent, questioning why they had risked their lives to save him. However, Adonis knows exactly why they did so, and that is because they plan to use Chloe for their own purposes. Anna is shocked that Adonis has such information, but back on Earth, before she died, Daroka told him that the witches plan to use Chloe's power, so they must flee the nation after she is revived. He also points out that the witches can survive the harsh conditions of space without any protection. So if they truly came here to just live in peace away from the humans, then they wouldn't have needed to create such an elaborate space station that can support human life. The real purpose of it is to act as a cage for humans. They plan to kidnap human slaves and children to train them on how to use the written style summoning magic in order to fight a war against the humans. Since the number of witches is low, they need to recover and get soldiers somehow. And since a draft isn't going to cut it, they are going to use Chloe and a little child labor to bolster their offense. They need Chloe to train them because she is the only one who can make those magic quills that allow humans to use magic, so it is crucial to their plan. He's got them all figured out, so she can't go gaslighting him into thinking he is selfish one here. He walks away, but Anna tells him to wait and still begs him to help them regardless of what he knows. Adonis clears one thing up. He's still going to revive Chloe. That much hasn't changed, and he doesn't really care what happens to either the witches or the humans, so they can go to war for all he cares. The only one he truly cares for is Chloe, so if they revive her and she chooses to reject their plans, then that is what he will do. Later, they begin the ceremony to revive Chloe, and Adonis steps forward to begin, hitting the most Power Ranger type poses for someone who is just riding in the air. His memories of Chloe are being transferred into the witch pod, and Adonis starts to have flashbacks to the time he spent with Chloe. One moment where they were both on a roof together gazing at the stars, and Adonis was showing off his knowledge of memorizing all the constellations, including the Adonis constellation, which she named after him. But she had forgotten about that and could barely remember where it was. Another moment where Chloe was taking a bath and Adonis had to clean up after her since she left her clothes everywhere. But while walking past the curtains, he noticed that she was covered in bruises all over. But she just tells him it's impolite to watch her in the bath. He retorts that he was only watching to make sure she was okay and goes to leave. But before he goes, Chloe breaks down in tears and thanks him for being with her because she wouldn't be able to live in this world alone, and it is the same feeling for him. As he completes the spell, he tells Chloe he loves her, and the pod opens to reveal the witch. However, that looks a lot more like Daroka than Chloe. We see Adonis crying as he tells Chloe that he loves her, and because he loves her, he can't force her to go through the suffering that she had already experienced again. So for that reason, he will not bring her back to life. There is no place for her here. There are the humans who want to kill her, and the witches who want to use her as a weapon. So to spare her a terrible fate, he uses his magic to overwrite the spell and have it resurrect Daroka instead, and he catches her saying he didn't want to leave his debt to her unpaid. Daroka is confused by the fact that she is still alive. She can clearly remember getting her back blown out back on Earth, so how did she end up in the Witch Nation and she is also naked? She realizes she is nude and gets embarrassed that Adonis is holding her, so she quickly backsteps. She begs him to erase the image of her body from his mind, but it's too late, it's already backed up to the cloud. He tells her to just put on a jacket and get up, while the other witches are visibly growing angrier by the minute. Ophelia with an angry smile. questions how he could have done such a thing after they went through all this effort to bring Chloe back. They brought him here, they healed his wounds, and they even guaranteed his safety, yet he decided to ruin their plans. The other witches then start saying things like typical behavior for a human, that he never really loved Chloe, or that Daroka must have convinced him to revive her somehow. We get a glimpse into Ophelia's true personality as she looks at Daroka with the eyes of, "I'm gonna beat you with my belt." Adonis tells them to shut their mouths as the choice not to revive Chloe was his alone. Ophelia doesn't like the tone that Adonis is talking to her with, so she tells him he is just a mere human and could never compare to the power of the witches her. She raises her hand and is about to turn him into a frog or something. But then several lights appear around her and her menacing demeanor fades as she is panicked and questions what Adonis did. Adonis says he didn't do anything. He just happens to be a long-term prisoner and pulls out a tracking chip that was implanted in his body. Soon after an explosion occurs, and remember that Mito tree that is the only way witches can reproduce. Yeah, that shit's on fire. And the culprit for this was Yamato, who tracked Adonis here with the chip that they had on him. He tells Adonis and the other witches that they are all trapped here and will be exterminated like the rats that they are, but Adonis tells him not to be so rude when he was the one who invited him here, to his final resting place. One witch yells out to Ophelia that she will take care of the burning Mito tree and starts using her water magic to put the fire out. But what did you think was going to happen if you yell out your intention to save the tree while the soldiers are standing right there? She loses her head. With her dead, the tree continues to burn and Ophelia is starting to lose her cool, so she tells everyone to get ready for a battle with the humans, and they all transform into their warrior gear. Meanwhile, Adonis is faced with Yamato, and as he is casting his spell, he gets in close to try to kill him quickly and stop his attack, but Adonis was never going for an attack and rather cast a spell to steal Yamato's gun. Yamato is knocked to the ground as Adonis continues to empty the entire magazine into him, but Daroka grabs onto his shirt and stops him. On the other side of the room, the witches are engaging in battle with the soldiers, and as you could expect with them still having access to their magic, they are destroying the soldiers. Ophelia then uses her natural law magic to make all the soldiers float. As they try to fire bullets at her, they all go in slow motion and miss their target. She gathers all the soldiers in one place and squishes them, covering the battlefield in blood. And she is smiling as she says humans are feeble, so they should be able to claim victory here. But as she looks over, she sees a second squad has been transported up and they killed some of the witches. She now realizes that they are playing a battle royale on endless mode and the kingdom will just keep sending soldiers up until they run out of energy. Back on Earth, they are getting live video feed of everything that is happening on the moon, and they ask why there are still so many witches alive when they were supposed to have wiped them all out 10 years ago. We see director Theta watching the situation in life support due to the stage 4 cancer she now has from the magic suppression machine. She is giving a report on the reason why she failed to find out that the witches. She explains that during the witch hunt 10 years ago, they had used capsules to yeet the dead witches into the stratosphere, but those same capsules were likely used by the witches to escape Earth and make their way to the moon. And once they were there, they built the station and used magic to hide themselves from their scanners. Dynasmo is angry that the witches are still alive and blames Theta for not figuring it out despite the huge annual budget they receive, saying her failure will cost her life. But I mean, she already has cancer, so I don't think her life can get much worse. One other person at the table, Shirosagi, tells them to calm down so they can handle the situation first, as they can handle the PR after they are done with the witches once and for all. We see a flashback of Yamato looking over Yuki, who now has stage 5 cancer from that machine. He talks about how she was always by his side wherever he went. When he entered the National Security Bureau, so did she, and when he became a director, she became his vice director, making her the youngest person to ever become one. He loves his sister dearly since even though she didn't like bureaucracy, she still did it to be near him. He blames Adonis for making her sacrifice herself to stop him, and he will make sure Adonis suffers for what happened to her. He tells his battle suit to set output to 500% and gets up. Though severely wounded, his speed has gone up dramatically, and he steps in front of Adonis before punching him across the field. Daroka runs over to him, but Adonis tells her to keep her eyes on the man with the intent to kill him. Yamato yells out in anger on how he will make Adonis pay for siding with the witches and prepares to draw his sword and slash. Inwardly, he thinks about how after he is done with this battle, he can retire and get a quiet place with Yuki to live out the rest of their lives together. He unsheathes his sword and releases the anti-witch slash, which stretches across the field. The attack is so powerful that literally all the witches in the area are killed in an instant. Adonis dodges, but Ophelia, she's also gone. And even Daroka, who has only been back to life for all of 10 minutes. Gone. Okay, never mind, second best girl is still safe. Anna used the same magic that was used to save Adonis when he was nearly killed by the military to save her. But she couldn't save herself, though. Headquarters asks for a report on the situation at the witch base since they've lost video feed and cannot tell what is happening. While on the base, the green grass has been painted red and Daroka is left crying over her friend's dead body. Adonis and Yamato are the only two left standing and are still in combat. Yamato gives a report to headquarters saying he has successfully neutralized the witches, leaving the final task to kill Adonis. Adonis throws his coat away and prepares to throw hands as he summons metal armor on himself with magic. He then charges at Yamato with a punch and jumps upward to evade the incoming slash from him. As he lands, he enchants his fist, allowing him to break through Yamato's sword and punch through his chest. However, Yamato still doesn't relent and uses the suit to bind Adonis, while he uses the regenerated blade to slash him. The witches watch in horror as they sit in a pool of their sister's blood. Ophelia tells them not to give up hope while she's split in two, but they have nothing to hope for since the Mito tree has been burnt to a crisp, and that means that no witches will ever be born or resurrected again. One tries to rally them, saying they can't afford to lose any more of their numbers and should back up Adonis to help him beat Yamato, but she gets shot in the back as the third squad of soldiers arrive. Yamato sticks his sword in the ground and does something that causes a tornado to appear and push Adonis back, giving him enough of an opening to stab him. But Adonis also had a trick up his sleeve and brings down that huge sword, cutting off the arm of Yamato. The damage is extensive, but the suit is able to stop the bleeding, and Yamato proclaims Adonis to be too dangerous to be left alive, and for that reason, he must die here among the witches while raising his sword to kill the injured Adonis. This was the end of episode 5. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to not miss the next part.